back again, and I'm doing a review on Barbara Kingsolver's Fight Behavior. This book was published in November of 2012 by HarperCollins. This book has 433 pages, and it has around 14,700 ratings on Goodreads. This one, I'm just going to say right off the bat, I love this book. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. It centers around the character Dilloroba, and she is pretty much a farmer's wife in a rural town. She had dreams of going to college, to getting out of that town, and she had the potential and the ambition to do that, but she got pregnant when she was 17 and she just settled down and got married. Eventually they have 2 kids. The story really starts out where she's deciding to leave her family, just to pick up and leave her family and to run off with a man, and then suddenly it looks like all of the trees are on fire, but there's no smoke, and so she sees that as like a sign from God, and she turns back and goes back to her family. And then later they discover that it's just butterflies. It signals a very big climate shift, that the migration of the monarch butterflies have come to the Appalachians, and instead of going down to Mexico where they typically go. Then a scientist, Ovid Byron, comes and she gets a job with him to help him study why the butterflies have greatly altered their migration pattern, what caused it, and exactly what it means for the whole species. It shows like a push and pull between rural people, affluent, educated people that come in there, and also the media, how they view these different types of things. From the rural perspective, the butterflies are a miracle from God and they're only a sign of good. Then the scientists are saying this is a sign that there are some serious disturbances in the environment, and this could potentially be like the sign that the species is going to become extinct. At the same time, the media is trying to exploit this, and Dilloroba, since she gets caught up in the media, that, you know, look how beautiful and wonderful it is, and they just kind of want to do a positive spin on the story because it's such a pretty image. That's how people want to receive this story, and they don't want to hear about climate change. Another element to the story that I really did appreciate was it was examining the dissonance between the communication between like people who are rural. They don't understand the science. They are really struggling from day to day to survive, to deal with their own problems, and then the affluent, educated scientists that come that are very concerned about the environment and are looking at the whole system like as a macro problem instead of micro problems, and so there's a dissonance in how they're communicating to each other. And Dilloroba seems to be a very good bridge between that, or she understands both sides, but then at the same time she understands why both sides aren't on the same page and they can't communicate. I mean, at one point she really realizes that the people who are thinking about the problems of the environment, they live in a completely different world than she does. When one researcher comes, she notices that their jacket zipper's broken. That person is totally surprised that she's like, I can fix that for you. You know, you can fix these things. You don't need to throw it away and buy a new one. They just live in a different world in which, you know, it's not that common that, you know, they would get pregnant at 17 and be stuck in a small town and never get educated. And she's just at awe at how worldly these people are, but at the same time how unaware of how rural people live and think and what their realities are. Another big moment in this book is where, because the environment becomes a big component of this book and people come to, like, you know, to reduce your carbon footprint, and one guy comes to her saying like, oh, here's a checklist on how to reduce your carbon footprint, and all of the things on the checklist are things that are completely not applicable to her. Like, one of them is like, oh, well, when you go out to eat, take your own Tupperware, or don't go out to eat so often. And then she says, well, I haven't been out to eat in 2 years. And they're like, okay, well, how about, you know, you fly less? Like, this whole family, they've never flown in a plane. I think it reveals the dissonance and the irony, the catch-22 about people who are really concerned about the environment. They're in a position of affluence to afford to care about the environment, while at the same time their position is actually the most detrimental on the environment. The affluent people are the ones who are consuming all of the resources, a big majority of the resources that contribute to a large carbon footprint. They're the ones that really need to reduce, but the ironic part is they're the ones that are aware of it, and they're the ones who are trying to fix it. But it doesn't make sense to assume that everyone has equal responsibility, because not everyone is at the same level of quality of life. The book really reveals that, in this big debate, they are forgetting that there are a bunch of people that have no choice in their carbon footprint. That Della Roba's family can't, afford to buy fancy new light bulbs to reduce their carbon footprint, or they can't afford to buy a hybrid car. And they're stuck fixing up their old gas guzzling car, which is kind of contradictory in the sense that they told them don't buy a new car, fix up your old car, but then at the same time buy a fuel efficient car. I mean, they don't have that financial freedom. They are concerned about paying their bills, they're concerned about putting food on the table, they're concerned about putting clothes on their kids, they're concerned about if they have enough money to pay the mortgage, or if they have to sell off a bunch of their land and clear cut their trees just to make a mortgage payment. And it shows how these decisions, while it's very easy for people to make those decisions, like, oh yeah, you shouldn't cut down the trees, duh, the environment, but it's not so easy for the person who needs that money. I really did like this book, and pretty much the type of dialogue it had with those types of concepts. I definitely would be buying this book in the future. I do actually love this cover. I've heard that Barbara Kingsolver's fans didn't really rate this book that highly, and they felt that it was a bit repetitive in comparison to some of her other books, but since I haven't read any of her other books, I kind of went in fresh, and I do really like Barbara Kingsolver's style. I loved her character development. I really cared for Della Roba and her family and everyone that she met, and this is definitely an author I want to read in the future. I already put the Poisonwood Bible on my TBR list, and I think after that I might want to read the Lacuna, but I heard that the Lacuna might be similar to this. I'm not sure. But if you are new to Barbara Kingsolver, I would highly recommend this book. That's my review. I hope you have a great day. See you later. Bye.